Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with another video tutorial for RPG Maker MZ, and this should work for MV as well, and maybe these should probably work for some of the earlier versions as well. Anyway, today's video is about random treasure using a common event and to randomly determine treasure, and then variables to store whatever the random treasure is in a variable so that it won't be overwritten or changed if you don't take the item. So the treasure chest allows you to leave the item in there, and even though we're using the same common event over and over again to determine the random treasure, because we're using different variables, then whatever's determined the first time is going to stay that way. So this was just a test to see multiple concepts. Number one, random treasure determination using a common event, and then on top of that, making it so that the treasure chest will remain the same even if you don't take the treasure. So that's how this is going to work. This is just one way to do it. I'm sure there's other ways, and I also just built it very basically, meaning that you could expand upon this. So instead of just one item of treasure, you could get multiple in each chest, and you could also randomly determine how many items that you get. And you're going to see that I only had a very small list of random treasure just for testing purposes. So you could expand upon this as much as you want. So let me show you how this is functioning in the game or in the testing environment here. So I'm going to go up here. I made 4 treasure chests because I want to show, I wanted to test the functionality, make sure it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it actually wasn't. I had to fix it before I made this video. So I'm going to click on the first one. Its chest contains a wooden staff, so I can either take it or I'm going to close it. I'm going to close it. So chest 1 is a wooden staff. Chest number 2 is empty. Okay, so that stays open. Chest number 3 is a potion. So I'm going to leave that there. So now we have a wooden staff and a potion. And then number 4 is linen clothing. That's awesome because there's really only 3 choices. And just randomly, we got one of each. It doesn't always work out that way. So we go back here. The first one, if I remember correct, was a wooden staff. So is it the same? Yes, it is. And if I click on it multiple times, it's going to stay a wooden staff. And before I do that, let me just show you that I have no items, I have no weapons, I have no armor. Okay, so let's go back here, and this time I will take the wooden staff, and then we'll go back over here. This was a potion, and it is still a potion. I'm going to take the potion, and then over here is linen clothing, and I'm going to take the linen clothing, and now all the chests are empty, and you can't engage with the chest anymore. And if I go in here, I have a potion, I have a wooden staff, and I have linen clothing. So works perfectly fine. Now, I'm going to show it one more time just to show that this is truly random, and you don't always get one of each. That's actually pretty rare. So let's go here. This is empty. We have a potion. We have empty again, and we have empty again. Okay, so let me try this one more time. Would like to see that getting 2 of the same item. I've tested this a bunch of times, so I know it works, but this is empty. This is a wooden staff. This is linen clothing. And this is a potion. So I'm going to test it one more time, just because really should get a duplicate. Now we did get duplicate empty, which is also pretty much the same thing, because they all have the same chance. So this was a potion. This was a wooden staff. Oh, there we go. There's another potion. And then this is a potion. So now we got 3 potions this time. So I'll take the potion, and then I'll take the potion, and then I'll take the wooden staff, and then I'll take the potion again. Okay. And then if I go in here, I have 3 potions, a wooden staff, and no armor. Okay, so that's how it functions in this testing area. And the way I did this was each one of these chests is almost exactly the same. We have to change a variable to track the item that's being selected. So if each chest had multiple items, you'd have to have multiple variables for those multiple items to make sure that you can track it. Now, if you didn't care, if you didn't make it so that the player could leave things in the chest, if you made it where when you open a chest, you're taking it or it's going away, then it doesn't really matter because they don't have a choice. And if you open a chest and you take the items, then you can reuse the variable over and over again. It's not going to make a difference. It only matters if you're going to, implement the concept of allowing the player to leave items within a chest, which is what I did in a previous tutorial on this selectable treasure chest, right, where they were able to choose from the items and leave some stuff there. So these are very, very similar, except that we're going to change a little bit of variable. They have 3 pages to them. The first page is the closed chest. Nothing fancy down here. It's same as character. We're going to select it when we action button it. It's the standard chest beginning where if you create a default chest, a quick event creation with the treasure, then it chooses the sound effect, which you could change if you wanted to, very simply enough, right? You're in the sound effects area. You can do whatever you want to with it. And of course, it sets the animation to make the chest open. So that's all default. Now here's where the first thing the event does is it calls the common event random treasure. So let's go look at that. So random treasure is the common event. And when it goes to this common event, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to take a variable number 1 is a die 4 roll. So variable 1 d4 roll equals random 1 to 4. So it's randomly generating a number between 1 and 4. Right? So 1 and 4 is the random roll generation. Then there's a series of conditional branches, right? Or conditional statements. If d4 roll equals 1, if it equals 2, if it equals 3, and if it equals 4. Okay, and now what we're doing is these comments are just reminders, right? And these are very helpful. I really should do these more. Put comments in on the stuff that I'm building, because I'll go back and look at them and I'll be like, what's going on here? I got to try to remember again. So these are just the reminders. They're very nice to have. So if the result of the random variable 1 is a 1, then this is going to do 2 things. It's going to take a control variable, 35, random item 1, and it's going to set it to, using a script, $data items, and then within brackets, 7.name. And this is a potion. And how do we know it's a potion? Well, if we go to the items, item number 7 is a potion. Okay, so that's how that's what that's doing. So it's going to basically take the potion as a name, and it's going to put it in the value of random item number 1. It's also going to take another variable, random item 1 type, and it's going to variable number 36, and it's going to set it to 1. And again, this is tracking the type of the random item. And 1 is the potion, 2, as you can see here, is the wooden staff, 3 is armor, and 0, you'll find out, is basically nothing. The chest is empty. And what you could do here, obviously, is, like I said, you could have much more, right? You could do a random roll and get into the potion area, and then you could do another conditional branching where it says, okay, now that I'm in the potion area, what am I going to get for a potion? Right? Am I going to get a regular potion, a full potion, a super potion, or whatever it is you call them? Same thing. Maybe die 2, a result of 2 is a weapon. So then you have a different random generation with different conditional branches to say which weapon am I getting. And then the same thing with armor. Okay, so if you'll notice here, there's not a lot of difference here. The $data items in brackets, the number 7, that's the number within the database for a potion, .name. If it's a wooden staff, it's the $data weapons, again, 7, .name, and we know it's, if we go to weapons, number 7 is the wooden staff. And then with the linen clothing, if it's the result of 3, then the random item number 1 variable is being set to $data armors in brackets 2, the number 2. That's the when we go to armors, you'll see that number 2 is linen clothing dot name. So we go to armors, number 2 is linen clothing. Okay, and so this random event, this common event, is only doing really a couple things. One, it's generating a number between 1 and 4, and then it's taking that result and saying, okay, if it's a 1, the player's going to get a potion. If it's a 2, they're going to get a wooden staff. If it's 3, they're going to get linen clothing. If it's 4, essentially they're not getting anything. And it's setting 2 variables. Random item 1 is being set specifically to the name of whatever item it is you want to give them. So $data items number 9, we would go to items. Number 9 would be a full potion. Okay, that's just the way that's just the way you're tracking it. And we're going to manually assign the correct item to give the player based on the result. Okay, this is where you have to do a little bit of work. Again, there may be an easier way to do this, but this is just a way that works. And then we're also setting this this variable random item 1 type equals 1, 2, 3, or 0. And we'll see how that works in the event itself. So that's the common event. So we get out of the common event, we go back to here. So we have the chest sound opening, it's motioning, it's doing the animation. The common event runs to determine what is the treasure. And now we're going to start off by assuming that it's actually going to be an item. So if, conditional branch, random item 1 type, remember the type was 1, 2, 3, or 0, if it's greater than 0, then it's going to do one of these things. It's going to do this whole section here. If it's, and then else, down here, all the way down here, else, meaning that if it's not greater than 0, which means it's a 0, then the chest is empty. Okay, so that's just a way to do that. So up here, if the random item 1 type is greater than 0, it's going to display a text and say the chest contains A, and then it's the /V for variable, and variable number 35. So it's going to show the value that we stored in variable 35. Okay, and now I have to go back here because I forgot to show one thing. So when we're in here, again, we're using this in the script area. So we're taking a variable and we're setting it to a script. And the script is essentially we're directly accessing the database, if you will, and it's $data items, and we're grabbing the name of item number 7 and saving it in the variable. So we're saving the word potion in this variable at this point in time. And in this one, we're saving the word wooden staff, and in this one, we're saving the word linen clothing. So when we go back here, it's going to say the chest contains A, and it's going to take that variable 35, and it's going to display whatever the value it is, potion, wooden staff, or linen clothing. Then when it comes to your show choices, we can put that same type of variable into our choices. So take and then show me what is saved in variable 35. So take potion, take wooden staff, take linen clothing, or close the chest, right? And then, of course, we're doing the default choice number 1, default or cancel is choice number 2. So we're gonna have our choices. We're gonna use that variable, and then in our text again, it'll say the party took that item, and we're again just displaying the value that's saved in variable 35, which we set from the common event. Then we're going to go through, okay, what do we give the player? So this right here, this part here, and the show choices and when take, that all stays the same because it's just pulling the value that we saved in the variable when we access the common event. That's all it's doing. But now we're going to use that other variable. We set that variable number 36, I think it was, random item 1 type, right? And we'll just go Bocek. Yep, number 36. random item number 1. And we said, okay, if it's a 1, then I remember that, oh, that equated to a potion. So I'm going to change the items, right? Change items to a potion, number 7. I'm going to increase it by 1. And then I'm going to turn self switch B on because I'm taking the item and the chest is going to be empty. So I'm going to advance to page 3. Down here, if the random item 1 type is 2, which is, this was set during the common event, then I know that the 2 equated to the wooden staff. So I'm going to change weapons, right? So change items here, change weapons here, and I'm going to increase wooden staff by 1. And then I'm going to set control self switch B to on. Or if it's a 3, right? If variable number 36 is a 3, then I remember that that was linen clothing, so I'm going to change armors, and I'm going to increase linen clothing by 1, and then set self switch B. Okay, so the beginning part is it says, okay, we're going to access the common event random treasure, and then if it's greater than 0, then I know that there's an item available, and I'm going to give you a choice. Do you want to take that item or not? I'm going to present you with the other choice down later. If you take it, then I'm going to tell you you took it, and then based on the result, a 1, a 2, or a 3, this event is changing the item, changing the weapon, or changing the armor. And so this is where, again, if you had more choices, you'd have to manually track this. In doing it this way, you'd have to manually track it, and you'd have to correlate all the different numbers with the different items or armors or weapons that you had as options within your random list. Because if I was going to do this for a real game, I'd have a list of like 20, 30 things. And I'd probably have a list for items, a list for armor, a list for weapons, and I'd be having treasure chest pull, deciding which list it goes to first, which common event it goes to first, and then grabbing, right? And maybe it does it multiple times, right? And so you could do all kinds of things here. And then, of course, the option when close the chest, it just plays the sound effects. It does the animations in reverse so that the chest closes. And then now what it's doing is it has to save whatever the results of the common event were in a new variable. Because once we walk away from this chest, if we don't access that common event again, fine, everything will stay the same. But if we don't save the results of the random common event treasure selection, if we don't save that somehow, if we go to the next treasure chest and we call that common event again, it's going to reuse those variables. So it's going to reset them to something different. And so that's what I did wrong the first time, is I forgot to use another variable to track the item or the armor or the weapon that they got, so that when I came back to the chest, it wouldn't have been overwritten or changed by checking another chest. So all I did here was I made a new variable, number 25, chest 1 item, right? And I'm setting it to random item 1, right? And random item 1 is essentially that variable 35. So potion, wooden staff, or linen clothing, right? And so I'm setting it to that from the common event, because we haven't redone the common event yet, so that is still the same value. So chest 1 item, and then I have another variable, chest 1 item type is going to equal random item 1 type. So basically that's just saying you need to remember, if we're going to close this chest event, you need to remember whether this was a 1, a 2, or a 3, right? You need to remember that, because when I come back, I want to get the same result. And then we're going to turn control switch A on, because control switch A is going to allow me to come back and have a choice of taking that item. And as we talked about with the else in the beginning, if it's not greater than 0, right? So if random item 1 type is not greater than 0, so basically it's 0 or below, then the chest was empty. That was the end result. Basically, we didn't find anything. And then we turn self switch B on because we're going to go to the last page. Okay? So let me go through the pages and then I'll highlight this again. So page 2 self switch A is on because there's an item in the chest and we've already determined what that item is. So we do the sound effects, we do the animation. We don't call the common event because the common event's already been done. We already know what's in the chest. And so this is very similar. But instead of this being random item one type, it's now the name of the variable that we gave it here, chest one item type. So if chest one item type is greater than 0, right, it's going to do its magic. And then if it's not greater than 0, then it reminds us, like it did in page 1, that the chest is empty. Okay. And here we're using the variable 25 now, right? Because back here we set variable 25 chest 1 item to be the same as random item 1 that we got from the common event. So now we've changed this variable and we've changed this variable 25. So the chest contains A and it prints out what it was saved as. You get to take it if you want to, and when take, then it's going to show you that you took it. And then again, continuing on, we changed the variable chest 1 item type. If it's 1, then it's a potion and control self switch B. If it's a 2, then it's a staff and it's control self switch B. And if it's a 3, then it's linen clothing and then it's self switch B. And then, of course, B advances the page. And when closed chest, it plays the sound effects, it plays the reverse animation, and then it just ends so that we can go back and we could, in theory, leave the item in the chest. And we already talked about the else. If it's not greater than 0, then it's empty, and it turns self switch B on. And then self switch B takes us to page 3. The chest is open, right? So the animation of the image is now of an open chest, and there's nothing in the contents because the chest is not going to be interacted with anymore. It's just going to sit there. Okay? So let's go back through this really quickly. So first and foremost, the common event. We're using a variable to generate a random number between 1 and 4. Based on the results, we have a comment of telling us what it is. And then we're using a script, okay? So again, we're using directly a script to reach out and grab the name of that item. And for items, it's $data. Remember, capitals are important, items. And then within the brackets, it's the number of the item. So if I were here, 7 is potion, 8 is super potion, 9 is full potion, 14 is miracle drop, right? Whatever is applicable. And then we're setting that variable random item 1, right? We're setting it to that, the name of that item. And then random item 1 type is equal to 1. So we're going to have that choice of 1, 2, 3, or 0. And then if it's a 2, we use the data weapons script call. And then we set the random item 1 type to 2. And if it's a 3, then we use the data armors script call to get the name of that number 2. And then random item 1 type equals 3. And again, you could do as many of these as you wanted to. And you could do multiple lists and multiple common events and multiple items and do all this kind of stuff. And then, of course, we're the same, right? Remember, we're using the variable same throughout, 35, 35, 35, 36, 36, 36. And 36 can also equal 0, which is an empty treasure chest. And then on the event itself, we do the sound effect and animation. We're calling that common event to figure out what's in the chest. And then if it's greater than 0, it's going to basically use the value stored in variable 35, and it's going to show us what it is. It's going to give us the option to take it using that variable 35, and then it tells us that we took variable 35. And then if the random item 1 type is greater than 1, then remember, you have to remember from the common event what you set it as, so you can code in the changing, change the items, change the weapons, change the armors. And then we're setting self switch B to advance it to the last page because the chest will be empty if we're taking it. And then when we decide to close the chest without taking anything, it's the sound effects, the animation, and then this is where we have to take that other variable and assign it to the random item 1 so that when we go back to that common event, it's not going to mess up the save that was in this event, right? And same thing, chest one item type, we have to set that to the random item one type from up here so that it will save it when we advance to the second page, which through control self switch A. Because originally when I built this, I kept the same variables thinking, oh, it's in the event. And so it's unique to that event, but it's not. Anytime you reuse the variable, right? If you set a new value to that variable, everywhere that variable appears in every event, that's the new value. So this is why some people say, don't reuse variables unless you're absolutely sure that you can do that, and you don't need to save it. In this instance, I want to reuse that common event over and over again. So if I want to give the player the option of not taking the item and leaving it in the chest, I have to create some new variables. And if I knew that this chest was going to have multiple items, I'd have to have multiple variables to store them in. Chest one, chest one, item two, chest one, item three, etc. Okay, I only need and then it depends on where I go as to whether I need more of these too, right? So again, this is very important because we're setting new variables to remember what we got the first time we opened the chest. And then of course we self switch A so we can go to the page 2. All right, and then page 2 is we're using those new variables. So now these are unique to this chest. And no matter how many times we leave the item in there, how long we leave it in there, it will still be the same item. Okay, and so it's because it is a new variable that we're using. Okay, and so this is just a nice little thing that if you didn't know, you can use that variable value in the show choices, which is really kind of cool. You can also use it in the script too, like when we show here. When we're here, you can actually use a variable in the name field as well, so that you can print something that's in a variable in the name in your text block. So that's kind of cool too. And that's pretty much it right there. Again, this is just a way to do using a common event to randomly determine what treasure the player gets, and then saving that in such a way so that we can leave the item and come back and it'll always be the same. And again, you can expand upon this as much as you want so that you can have a lot bigger list, and you could do common events within common events. You could have one common event that's deciding, am I going to give the player an item? Am I going to give them weapon? Am I going to give them armor? And then when it determines that, it sends it to another common event to determine what item, what armor, what weapon to give them or armor to give them. And you could do that. You could do all kinds of stuff with this. You could build off this. So anyway, I hope that's helpful to people. I thought this was a pretty cool way. Again, there very well may be a plugin that does this for you. There may be other ways to do this. In fact, I'm still exploring how to make this easier and more efficient, because I really do want to have a system where not every single, but the vast majority of treasure chests are broken up by type, and maybe by party level, and it's randomly determined what the player's going to get, how much treasure they get, if anything, how much gold, how many items, which items they get. All that would be randomly determined, and the treasure chest also would make it where the player can leave some of the things in the chest and not take them if they don't want them. So I want to put all that together, and once I do, maybe I'll make a consolidated tutorial on it. Especially if I find an easier way to do it, something that's more efficient, saves on variables or whatever. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I'm glad you found my channel. Hey, check out that selectable treasure chest if you haven't seen it yet. Check out my old videos or my previous videos. And please, if these are helpful, get notifications, subscribe and leave comments. I love seeing comments. I love seeing how if this is helpful for you, because the reason I'm doing this is because I'm still learning, and when I build something that I haven't seen necessarily described somewhere, and maybe somebody else will want to find it, and maybe it'll help them. I can do a tutorial on it with the basic equipment that I have. So thank you very much, folks. I hope you have a great day. And in the meantime, until I have time to do another video, happy game developing. All right, and I'll see you later.